Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is a special live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And my guest got lost in the Ventura surf. He's only home for a couple days before he gets back out on the road, but we found him. We're about to cook. Neal, Casal, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry for being late for our prior scheduled interview. Yes, I was out surfing, and it was so good that I lost track of the time.
No, but I like that, man. You're always in the moment. Neal, I want to play you this piece of sound I did with a recent guest, and I want you to listen to it, marinate on it, and we'll come back and talk about it.
A lot of things happened. I got involved with heavy drugs again. I was strung out on free days for about a year and a half, 2 years at one point. And I didn't start singing to him again until 1994, which is 21 years after he died. Because I was standing in my room in New York, and I was really in bad shape, very unhappy, tremendous despair. And I walked into the living room, and I was struck like a lightning bolt with the understanding that if I did not sing with people, chant with people, I would never clean out the dark corners of my own heart. And of course, I intuitively understood that that was my only problem. All my suffering was coming from this darkness and these shadows in my own heart. And that chanting was the only way that I had to do that. It was just a flash. And even then, it took me a few months to figure out how to start doing that. But that's why I sing. I don't sing to have bliss, to have joy. I sing to fucking live, you know. That's what keeps me alive.
I fucking dig, man. All right, Mr. Casal, I don't expect you to know who that is. I don't know if you ever crossed paths with Krishna Das.
No.
Yeah, so
I have not.
Yeah, so
I know who he is.
Yeah, so my question really straight up is, he was talking about Maharaji, his guru, and when
he was the guy who who took Ram Dass or took Richard Alpert to Maharaji for the first time, right? Those guys traveled together.
They did,
yeah.
and he. The thing is that he was a tormented soul. I mean, Krishna Das was, and what he was saying was if I don't chant, I die. And so I asked Neal Casal, in the midst of all of this sort of burgeoning, creative, stretching the vocabulary of music and being on the road, but if you didn't have music, would you fucking die?
I'll say it like this. I'll just kind of take just for myself, kind of take the drama, the drama needle down a little bit, or So I'll tell you this. When I was a kid, I was drawn to music because something in me wanted to get out of where I was, like playing the guitar and singing were the only things that were going to get me out of my little town. And, there's nothing really wrong with my little town where I come from, But in my dramatic young mind, the idea of a mundane life, sort of what I saw as like a dead-end kind of life, which it doesn't necessarily have to be for everybody, of course, because I still have many friends right where I come from. So I'm not speaking down to anyone or speaking badly about anything or a place, because every place is just wherever you are, so it's fine. But for me, the way I saw it was I had to get out. And there was only one way for me to do that, and that was by playing music and singing. So there was and still remains a certain, I don't know, there's a certain like desperation there, or not that I'm desperate for anything, but there is a pleading, there is a needing to do it, that I can't even fully explain to this day. While I was surfing a little while ago, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how songwriting is constantly gnawing at me. The idea of writing songs and the need to write what I feel are good songs gnaws at me stronger than almost anything else in life. You know, I have no children, so I thought about it. I thought, oh, you know, does the idea of like having a family gnaw at me as hard as this? No, it doesn't actually. Like, other things fade into the background. When I'm really honest with myself, like writing songs, playing music, singing definitely, you know, factors in for me too. There is a true need to do it. I don't know if I would fucking die if I didn't. I might not die. You know, I might have to figure something else out, because, you know, living life is a beautiful thing. So I don't want to think that I'd have to die without anything. You know, there's infinite ways to live a life, so maybe something else can be figured out. But I'd rather not face that prospect, that's for sure. And it's really frightening to think about a life without being able to play music or sing. I definitely do not want to ever have to answer that question. That sounds like one of the worst situations that I could ever be in. So, you know, yeah, playing and singing, man, it was of absolute desperate importance to me when I was a kid, you know, to get me. I mean, that's what, you know, rock and roll, the best rock and roll guitar players all have that, you know, like
Yes.
Johnny Thunders,
Mm-hmm.
Paul Kossoff, you know, I mean, you could just look at those guys, you know, and I'm one of them. Like, they're just some knuckleheads, you know, the Young Brothers and AC/DC, Keith, you know, like that's part of what makes. I mean, Jerry Garcia, Bob Weir. He said it. You know, he said it himself. I've worked on his movie. I heard the quotes. I mean, we're just people who just have to do this and are quite tunnel visioned about it, and we remain that tunnel visioned about it well into adulthood. You know, so that part of us never truly grows up, you know. And I'll finish my answer to your question with another memory I had, and it came to me so many years later. When I first left home, and I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I was playing in this band, and I lived in a barn. I had just left home, and I had absolutely no money. I was stealing food from a Total Station, ramen noodles, you know,
Right.
and cans of soup. I'd like to, you know, put them into my jacket. I mean, literally, the you know, the time honored tradition of starving musicians. But I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I lived very close to the campus of the University of Michigan. And every day I would walk around that campus because there was a lot of shops and restaurants and record stores around the campus. So I would be walking side by side, almost arm in arm, with kids that were my exact same age, and they were all going to college, and I wasn't. I was living in a freezing barn and starving and stealing food just so I could play guitar in a rock and roll band. And never once did it occur to me that I should be doing what they were doing. I never, ever doubted myself, and I never thought, well, you know, maybe I should try to go to college like they are because it's a smarter move. It never dawned on me until at least 15 years later when, you know, I grew up and had some hindsight and realized that that's how badly I wanted to do this. And that's how much it meant to me. And it was really a matter of life or death back then. And the idea of writing songs and staying in music, playing, singing, still does feel that way to me. And singing is this physical resonant action that happens, that once you get to a certain level with it and you're pretty good at it, it's something that's very, very hard to live without. So I understand what he meant in that sense. So yes, without the the histrionics, it is a matter of life or death. So he's exactly right. There we go. We've come full circle.
Well, no, I mean, dude, we're 11 minutes in and you just knocked. I mean, I just threw a haymaker at you and you just came right back. I mean, the thing is that Krishnadas, truly believed in Maharaji, and when Maharaji passed away, he became despondent. And he basically putzed around for quite a few, for 20 years. And then you didn't even have the context of the full quote, typical of Jake Feinberg. So, the point is that he was doing freebase, he was doing a lot of drugs, and he just went into his living room and a lightning bolt hit him. And now he is one of these Hindu chant masters now, and he's still raging inside. You realize that? Like, he still needs to do this with Mark Egan and David Nichtern to get this stuff out of his system. And I want to go back to the first thing that you said about this thing, about the family, which can come in time, versus this gnawing, sort of needing, I don't know what the right word is, about writing songs. Can you go deeper on that? Especially with Circles, because this is what I wanted to get into. Is it's primarily an instrumental improvisational band, and I wanted to know.
It's completely one. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to make. I didn't know sometimes if you threw the vocals in, or I didn't. I don't know. Totally know, but
no.
I wanted you to talk specifically about, this obsession and this need for being able to craft songs, and then on top of that, how deeply in the last 10 years since you connected with Lesh and Chris Robinson have you studied Ornette Coleman's harmonic theory?
I haven't studied that at all. I probably should. I still have so much education to put myself through in life. That's probably an embarrassing thing to admit, but I can't lie. So the need to write songs. Well, for me, it started, it started from day one, really, of hearing music. You could hear something as, as tried and true as Ramblin' Man, by the Allman Brothers, and just hear what an absolutely great song that is on every level, the composition of the whole thing. So, even silly songs, Carpenter songs, when you really get down to them, are brilliant pieces of work and writing. And as I got into my songwriting life, you discover Townes Van Zandt, Guy Clark, Jackson Browne's early records. Anyone, the list is extremely long. I just got fascinated with it. Songs move me, stories move me, lyrics move me, the mythology of songs, everything, they lit my imagination on fire. I heard Sympathy for the Devil when I was, 9 years old or something, and, those lyrics they just fascinated me endlessly. They opened the door to politics to me, to war, to, social issues. It's endless what song can do for us. So I'm in the game. I'm in the business of making songs, playing songs. I have written a few myself. I've made many records under my own name. I've written a lot of songs. I've maybe written a loose handful of, just a few what I consider great songs. The rest of them are pretty good, and then there's some clunkers rattling around there at the bottom of the can,
Well, no, but hold on. The Circles Around the Sun, though, that's total improv. So that's burning music. That's why I brought up Ornette Coleman, and also I was just recently transcribing our first interview, and you talked about this cathartic relationship with Phil Lesh, and I mean, him and Jerry both drank the Kool-Aid on Ornette, and again, I'm not a musician, but I'm just saying, okay, so Neal's going into this new vector where it's like full free music, but so can you talk about in the improvisational setting with Circles, what gets you off the most?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a whole other, that's another area of music that interests me, as much as songwriting, really. They're connected, but it's definitely different, the instrumental thing, with Circles. It's newer territory for me. I've always loved jazz music, and I've listened to some Ornette and all those, the great musicians, because I'm in the whole, I have a large record collection, and all of it interests me because it's all connected and it's all beautiful.
Right.
But I never considered myself really able to play like that. I always operated in the song world, in the band world, up until the last 5 or 6 years, really, when becoming a part of this jam world, if you will, was I was kind of thrust into it, really. I didn't go looking for it. So making this instrumental music is amazing. It's an interest of mine. It's an incredible new area of exploration. Oh God, it's endless what you can do with it. I don't feel as comfortable as a lot of other musicians that are now friends of mine do. I mean, I'm friends with some of these incredible guitar players, anyone from Jimmy Herring to Scott Metzger, and on down the line. And the keyboard players that were around, from my man, Adam McDougall, to Jeff Chimenti, to Jason Crosby, I mean, Eric Deutsch. I mean, I can name a lot of these people. I'm not up to par with them, really. As a musician, my harmonic depth is extremely limited.
So then let me ask you something. I know this is really important, okay? Because this is, I mean, you just before. I mean, what I love, because I mean, a lot of times vocal music lyrics, they go over my head in some ways, especially if I'm listening to stuff before my generation, so to speak. But why are you doing Circles then? I mean, that's what I'm saying is it was music that took off at the 50th anniversary of the Grateful Dead and Beyond Wildest Dreams. And so it makes sense to say, okay, so it cooked with these people. You have a good following. You're part of Chris Robinson. You get off the ground, but why are you doing it? I mean, because I want to know what you're passionate about, man, because why you're doing this specific, why you decided to be a leader of a band without vocals.
Well, I mean, it got decided for me, really, in a way, like, but then again, I don't know, there's roots in all this stuff. The CRB opened up, doors. It just increased my interest in playing. Being a guitar player was not really my first, my primary duty before. I was a singer and a songwriter, and I've always played guitar, and it's meant a lot to me, like tone and gear and, my touch and all the stuff that I worked on. But like, the emphasis on being a guitar player and a musician came with the CRB, and Adam McDougall and I, and Chris too, because Chris is a well-educated person when it comes to jazz music, lots of experimental, free forms of music, R&B, instrumental records, and all.
Absolutely,
all the stuff that we're into. So I just started getting into it with the CRB, and then because Adam and I would talk all day about how to play together, and I started like studying guitar more and getting a little bit better at it, and trying to become a better musician, not just a folk songwriter or like a pop songwriter in the way that I was, or a rock person, but like actually get a little deeper into music, as it were, and hang it, excuse me, Chris and Adam and myself. And this goes back to George Sluppick too, another guy with roots in jazz music, turned me on to lots of records. Tony Leone and Jeff Hill, rhythm section, the CRB now. Both of those guys, deep roots. These guys are great players.
They are, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
man.
I just found myself in a new world of people, and found my interests and my passions were sort of lit up again in a new way. Just an expanded. My life as a musician has expanded, and I decided, and I got excited about trying to break through my own boundaries, push myself into places where I'm not comfortable. And playing with Phil very much does that for me, particularly in the beginning. It pushed me way out of my comfort zone. And, I found myself standing next to Jimmy Herring. I found myself standing next to Warren Haynes. I found myself standing next to, Stanley Jordan. I get to play with Joe Russo. Jeff, Adam blows my mind on a daily basis. I mean, these are just, it's a caliber of people that, I just wasn't around before, and I just had to raise my game. And in doing that, I got better, I guess. And, just listening to like Gabor Szabo records all day got me interested in trying to become a better guitar player. And, why stay where you are? I learned plenty where I was before. Why not give this a shot? And people started calling me to do stuff. The hardworking Americans called and said, come play. Other people called and said, come play. I mean, it kind of surprised me, really. Phil called and said, come play. I mean, I wasn't not prepared for that. I had to learn really quickly. And then, suddenly I get the call to make the music for the Fairly Well shows. And once again, it was just like, I just had to pull myself up really fast. And I applied the lessons that I learned through the Grateful Dead music, which is connected to jazz music. And I took the lessons that I learned from Chris, and Adam, and our late night hangs on our bus, listening to like deep jazz records. I took the lessons I learned from George. I took the lessons I learned from Tony. I took the lessons I learned from all of my friends. And I just simply tried to represent, even though, in my mind, I'm a pretty crap guitar player. Some people think I'm great, but, when I put myself up against the people that I love, I am merely a student. But I do have something to offer, I suppose, and I'm doing my best with that. I told you, we've talked about it, and I've said it a lot. I mean, I had no idea that anyone would react to the Circles music the way they did. I really didn't know, and here we are. And I find it interesting to go and play this music live and see where we can take it, because I love playing with Adam. I love Dan and Mark. They're my friends, and we're not doing this to like try to go make a buck or anything like that, because we're not established. It is not an established fact that we have any kind of like built-in or audience or a sustainable one. We have to work. We're going to have to work really hard for whatever we get. And so the bottom line for me is I'm interested not only in being a songwriter, but I'm interested in being a guitar player and a well-rounded musician. And this instrumental music that we're making gives me a chance to truly explore with people that I love to play with, and it's really fun, and it's rhythmically based so people can dance to it, and I love that idea. And the other great thing about it for me is that, at least at this point, I'm not singing, which de-emphasizes my role on stage, because the older I get, the less I like being the center of attention. I like being the second guy. So I can fade into the background, and the music, the primacy of the music can step forward. And maybe, as time goes on, I'd like to increase our visuals, have a nice light show, and have people, just be there to enjoy and experience, and not be looking at me as a singer, and I don't have to deliver some kind of message to them, because I don't really have one other than, just the love of making music and love of community and what music can do for people as a community, and how to build communities and like just have a good time and celebrations of just being alive. So that's why I'm doing Circles.
No, I dig.
It's a great way to celebrate.
Talking to Neal Casal here on the Jake Feinberg Show, and I wonder sometimes. I mean, I've done so many shows with guys that were marinating at Bill Graham's Fillmore West, and so you'd have Commander Cody, Tiny Tim, and the Preservation Hall Jazz Band on the same bill. And I wonder, and so it was this, it stretched people's ears out. And I wonder, so you're not singing yet with Circles, but I wonder, do you think that there are, outside of the jam circuit, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think these shows in Colorado, you're going to be the late night set for Dead and Company, something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, we are in Boulder.
My question is, do you think that this music should be shared, because we've become so stratified within music and music concerts and festivals? Where else could this music be placed for people to be able to learn to enjoy life and explore improvisational music to stretch their ears? It was sort of in my mind today. I said, does the jam band circuit really need Circles, or is there another forum that this band could go to?
Oh, I have no idea. Maybe, but I haven't thought that hard about it. I'm not that evangelical about it or anything. I'm perfectly happy to play this music for jam band audiences, because I think they're great, and I love being a part of this world. I'm rather new to it. I enjoy it. I don't find it, limiting yet anyway. And if there's another place that this music will, where it can exist, or if we can expand it, that's great. I think the music will tell us, or the world will tell us. But I'm not going to try to force myself into any other situations. And I'm certainly not going to go knocking on anyone's door to try to, get heard. I'm not going to try to appeal to any younger hipster people or anything like that. If there's people now, and I'm not even going to classify them. That's the thing. It's like, if people come from a Dead and Whatever show to see us, that's great. I'm more than happy to play for whoever shows up in front of us. I would love anyone to come and enjoy whatever we're doing. If they're into it, fantastic. And I'm sure that, I think to categorize those people generally, just because they went to a Dead and Something show doesn't mean they're not into other stuff. And I don't know. I'll just try my best to do away with the label, even though, let's face it, the Dead, the Grateful Dead, this whole, the increased phenomena of it over the past few years is the reason why Circles exist, right?
Right.
So, it wouldn't exist without that, and it wouldn't exist without that audience. It wouldn't exist without, Deadheads, as a whole, generally all accepting this music and being really excited about it. So I have nothing but grateful feelings towards them. It's not time yet for me to say, and believe me, I understand your question, so I'm not it sounds like I'm coming off like telling you.
No, you don't need. No. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. I love the pushback. All I'm getting.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting. Yeah, I get it. A few other people have said this to me. We're like, there's other places to go with it, but I don't know. I've experienced this before in my career, where you prematurely start thinking this isn't good enough, or we have to get a bigger record deal, or, and it's just, I'm just going to appreciate exactly where I'm at in the moment. And if dead people, dead heads they're fucking great, man. You know what I mean? I'll play to them. It'll be great. Like I'm perfectly happy with that. What am I going to do? Who else?
You know what it is? I see, again, you're not a promoter and you're not a businessman. I mean, Graham was able to monetize that scene. I just say, actually, it's very much needed in our zeitgeist right now, is to get people like, I see you as a bridge to being able to connect people of like minds, but just because the music has been stratified, it's just something that it will be interesting in several years to see circles evolve and say, boy, where can this stuff have an impact even more? But, what I want
Yeah, I get that. I agree there. I mean, yeah, you don't want to just just stick in the same thing. I mean, all the attention on the dead, some of it makes you wonder what's really going on, but I don't know. I'm just not going to even think that hard about it because I'm just going to play and keep on playing music that's interesting to me, and like it will find its way because, and I'm not trying to, just get rid of the responsibility of having to answer that question. But every time that I've tried,
yeah.
But seriously, every time that I've like overthought it and tried to, place myself somewhere or all of that, it's just it always falls flat, But whenever I just kind of let it go and kind of follow my instincts and just like go for it, that's when the best things happen. That's why circles happen, because we just had to like throw ourselves over a ledge and just go.
Right.
And when we did that, like it's so beautiful that way, and that's where I'm staying, and that's it. And hopefully the music that we make and maybe even this record will eventually worm its way, it will find its way in wider circles. I mean, the Grateful Dead music at one time was for a very select group of people. No one would have ever predicted the worldwide phenomena that they have become. Nobody, and that it keeps on growing in these weird ways. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, when it blew up in the late 80s, people were like, what? And then it got even bigger in the 90s, and it was like, what? And now it's 20 years after they were even a band, and it's even bigger than ever, and it's still like, what? I mean, you've been around, I've been around, like you never would have thought this 25 years ago, 30 years ago. There's no way you could have predicted it. So maybe Circles Around the Sun will be some legendary thing. Maybe people will forget it next year. Who cares?
Right. No, this is, you talked to me very honestly last time about Chris approaching you and basically explaining what he envisioned your role to be with the Brotherhood, and how you really thought he was out of his mind and said, well, I'll give it a try. But, it took you had a learning curve, but eventually you got going. Has being a leader been easier than accepting that role? Or what has been the most rewarding thing, or maybe that, and also what is challenging about being the leader of a band?
Well, I've done it before, and it's not so hard with Circles because it's still, more of a, it's not our, first band. It's not anyone's, primary thing. CRB is still, will remain, the number one thing that I do. And, Circles comes when, will come when, CRB has breaks. So everything still revolves around CRB for me and Adam. So we're not, at the moment, we don't have tons of shows. Not singing takes a lot of the heat off of me as a leader. Being older than I was when I used to be the leader all the time really helps a lot. Because, as you know, with a little time, you mellow out a little bit in some really nice ways. So if things get too intense, I can just kind of laugh and go, all right, let's take a little break. Everyone just cool out. Let's come back and hit this tomorrow or in a couple hours, okay? Because I don't want to get too wound up about any one thing here. The guys, that I work with too, my bandmates, are just fantastic people. They have a lot of experience too. we all get along great. We're all after the same thing. So far, we don't have any of those typical, band problems where it's, like, well, this guy's a whatever, and I hate him, and he did this, and
but you did it. But I mean, I guess when were you? What other positions of leadership in bands? I mean, with Ryan Adams, are you talking about prior to that? I'd love to know.
Yeah.
Because to me, it seemed like you were like, Chris, you're out of your mind. You're talking to the wrong cat. But now you seem.
Well.
I mean, you seem like you're more. Go ahead.
No. Well, what I said to Chris was that the role, the lead guitar player thing of, like, being one of these, like, guitar guys, that's what I wasn't so comfortable with.
I see.
In the beginning.
I dig.
Yeah, when he said, like, no, you're going to be, like, the lead guy, and we're going to play these really long instrumental things, and, like, you're the cat, And I was like, no, I can't. I've never been that cat. That's not me. Like, I love Yes, and I love the Grateful Dead, and I love all these, like, proggy hippie bands as much as you do, but I don't think that I do that. I've never done that. So that's where I was uncomfortable, because I was always more, I don't know, just into shorter song forms and, melodic. Well, Chris is into melodies, but I mean, just a different kind of music. I'd never really played that expansively before, and I was just afraid of getting put into this jam world with all of these virtuoso musicians, which I don't consider myself to be. So I wasn't comfortable with that, but I got into it, and, here I am doing my best, slugging it out, with all the pros.
You're in the big leagues now, man. You're in the big leagues now.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know, but I do enjoy expanding a lot. I will say that.
Right.
So,
right.
And I got a pretty good sense of humor, so I can just kind of deal with it, and it's all with a wink, really, at the end of the day. But as far as leading bands and leading my own stuff, this goes back 20 years, over 20 years, really. My first solo record came out in 1995. I made a lot of them. If you look, there's a lot of songs of just me singing that I wrote and, like, put bands together to listen to. I toured with groups all through Europe and the States, and it was that's what I did. My friend John Ginty, great keyboard player who was in Robert Randolph's band in the early days, and Citizen Cope in his early days, and does his own thing now. John was my my cohort back then, and we learned the ropes together. But yeah, I was the leader, so I've done this for a long time. It's a lifetime that people don't know about me. They don't know. There was a whole other thing that happened before Ryan, before any of this. That was all based on songwriting. I was a little bit a part of the No Depression scene, or the early Americana scene in the mid '90s. The Jayhawks, Uncle Tupelo, Go Henry, all of those things. That's where I lived. That's what I was into. I wasn't so much a part of the jam scene, even though I played the Wetlands, because I lived in New York and I knew some of that stuff. But it's not where I resided. I spent years learning to write songs and, like, how to make records. How to record was a big thing for me. So there was a whole other career, really, before Ryan and before CRB and all these things now. But all of that knowledge and work that I put in is what built the foundation, to make me a musician I am now. And that's why, I've been able to thrive somewhat in this world, because I'm not the virtuosic guitar player that a lot of my friends are, but I have a lot of other skills, and I bring a lot to the table because of the work that I put in so many areas for decades.
You said something before, about 20 minutes ago, about letting the music take you somewhere and trusting the music. Do you think that you learned? Mm-hmm. Could you give an example in this earlier chapter of Casal's musical existence where you were fighting that, but you learned to trust the music?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, we all have to learn that at some point. I mean, unless you know it innately. Some people do.
Right.
You know, I learned from musicians. I learned from some producers that I worked with back then. A guy named Jim Scott, who's still like family to me. You know, he produced a couple of the Tedeschi Trucks records, and I mean, if you look up his discography, it's rather staggering.
But he's a person. But but he's a person. I mean, I'm talking about the music. Let the music tell you the direction.
Yeah, but I mean, like some of these people kind of helped me figure that. You know, pointed me towards that.
Right.
You know?
Right. Tell
like
me.
There were people. Yeah, there were people. You know, that could see that I was hung up. You know, and it was those. And it was like it was with guidance that I learned to get out of my own way. You know, people like Jim Scott, Don Heffington, Bob Glaub, Greg Lease. You know, these are like some great musicians if you know who they are. And those are and they were older than me.
Right.
And they you know, George Drakoulias is a great producer. You know, produced the first couple Black Crowes records and the Jayhawks. Like these were people in the '90s that I was around, who taught me to get out of my own way and to let the music tell you where to go and how to be. So I had guides, is my point, you know. And now, now I know it. Now I don't need to be told. Well, sometimes I do need to be told. Sometimes we all need to be reminded, you know. But I learned to get out of the way when it's good, and get in the way when it's bad. And not to worry so much, you know, about these things. Because if you're, you know, Chris says this too, like, follow the muse and it will take care of you, you know. And he's right about that. You know, you keep yourself in the right place, you keep yourself following the right idea. You may kind of muddle through the weeds for a while, but you know, you pay your dues and you will be rewarded. You definitely will. So I've learned to hang in there and persevere, and things work out. Because if you quit and you give up too soon, you know, you just won't get to the gold.
Did you play a hand as a leader? Why did you decide on the rhythm section that you did for Circles? I mean, I've listened to some of the live stuff, and it's quite interesting. But I mean, how did you find those cats?
Adam found Mark. Adam knew Mark. Mark was in Colorado. He had met him somewhere some years ago, and he'd been telling me about Mark. He said, I found this cat. He's great, you know. Oh, okay, cool. And then I met Mark when he played in the Congress, and the Congress opened up some shows for hardworking Americans, and I thought, man, that guy's great. And then, you know, it was a few shows in, I talked to Adam, and I said, hey, man, this band, the Congress, the drummer's great. He goes, that's the guy I've been telling you about. And I didn't put the two together until he said it, and I went, oh, great. Well, that's good. It's nice to know we're, you know, on the same page there. So when it came time to do Circles, Adam said, hey, you know, I called Adam first, obviously, and said, you know, help me out with this. He said, let's call that guy Mark. Sure, no problem. So Mark came out, and then with Dan, I'd known Dan because I play in Beachwood Sparks with him, and I've known him from LA for a long time. And his bass playing, you know, he does the fill thing in the way that I try to do the dead thing on guitar, which is like you can hear the essence, but no one's actually copying anything, you know. I thought Dan would really be perfect for what I was trying to accomplish, and he absolutely was, and then some, because Dan is a really fierce musician. He's fearless. He just goes for it. I love that about him, and he plays beautiful pedal steel, and he also has a studio. You know, he's like multi-talented and a great guy. So yeah, that's how we came together, and we recorded the album at my friend's studio here in Ventura. This guy JP Hesser, who has a great room right down the street from where I live. He's got great ears. So we kept it local, and it just ended up sounding perfect.
You know, before I let you go, I just wanted you to talk about, you know, my show has basically become about rhythm. We have so much, you know, technology today and lack of human rhythm. But I was hoping you could talk about Tony Leone's time feel and how he drives the band, the Chris Robinson Brotherhood.
Oh, yeah. Well, everything changed when Tony got with us, Tony is an absolutely tremendous drummer on more than one level. There's a lot going on with him. He can drive really hard if he needs to and keep things metronomic and straight. But I've seen him do it, but that's rarely called upon with CRB, because what we're all about in that band is the deeper aspects of what Tony brings as a drummer. Like I said before, the guy has deep jazz roots, deep R&B roots. He's done his homework, and he's filtered his influences through in the most creative ways. And he's just, simply put, the guy is just talented. He just is talented as a drummer. His time is impeccable. His feel is impeccable. He knows how to sit behind the beat in the way that I love so much. Tony and I get along on a Rolling Stones level too, which is really cool, because I'm a Stones freak, and I'm a freak for the subtleties of the Rolling Stones rhythmic brilliance.
Right.
And there's some real fine points going on with like the best Stones music. It's very hard to put a finger on why that stuff is so powerful rhythmically, because with like the Stones, when you break down some of the individual players, they're not virtuosos, but you put them together and you just have this juggernaut of rhythm, and there's like certain people are behind the beat, others are a little bit ahead of it, and it all kind of blends together into this magical combo. And Tony understands the deeper points of those of the Rolling Stones records. So he and I can talk about those things, and we've actually brought a lot of that into the CRB music, without ever imitating the Stones. You know what I mean? We don't.
No,
sound like
no, of course not. But yeah. Are you? Could you talk specifically about how he uses the bass drum? I mean, he's a jazzer as well. I mean, deep jazz cat. And to me, is he playing a jazz top with a rock bottom? How does he use the bass drum as an accent? Because I don't think he's playing a lot of backbeat.
It depends on the song. I mean, he can really mix it up. He's very diverse, and sometimes, Tony works in mysterious ways a lot of times. I mean, he's doing things that I don't fully understand. But the thing to know about what's great about Tony is, like, most people with as deep a jazz knowledge as he has aren't into rock music like he is.
Right.
So a lot of the deep jazzers, they would turn their nose up at a lot of the like rock music that Tony loves so much. I mean, he can do all of it. That's the thing, and he does it with equal heart. You know what I mean? He's not just putting on a style when he does it. I mean, he really loves those jazz records, but he really loves those Allman Brothers records too, and he really loves the Rolling Stones records, and he really loves all the country music that, that he heard as a kid. I mean, he just, and he really, I mean, his R&B knowledge is very deep as well, and he reads constantly about music. He devours music history. So yeah, he's a great student of the game. He knows how to put it all together. He knows how to separate his talents, for certain songs. As far as his bass drum work goes, I don't know. I've seen him with Anders, Anders Osborne, where he's just like, putting his bass drum through the center of your skull, and I had no idea that he had that ability. And then other times in like the deepest CRB jams, you just look back and you can just see it barely touching the bass drum head, and he's just like playing so subtly, but the pulse never goes away, and it's quite a thing to behold. Tony's a wonderful musician, and he's melodically hip too. He plays mandolin; he's pretty good. He can sing. He has a full understanding of music itself. So it's another great thing about him. It's not just about drums for Tony at all. It's about the whole of the music. He never loses sight of the song that we're playing and the real reason that we're there, which is just like for everyone to enjoy an awesome song that a band they like plays. It's not about his little licks or whatever. I mean, you'll never hear Tony talking about, I don't know, little, geeky drum things. I mean, you'll hear him talk, if he's talking to another drummer, they'll get into it. But Tony just plays music, He doesn't.
Well, he plays the song. He plays the song. I mean, that's most importantly. He's just not just a timekeeper, but he's melodic. And Casal, I mean,
and he lets the song play him.
That's
Yeah.
Casal, I mean, you are
Sorry.
one of the most, such an inspirational cat. But I mean, one day we're going to get together and hang for a minute. In your record collection, do you have Mel Brown's "I'd Rather Suck My Thumb"? Do you have that vinyl?
I do.
Can you talk about what Mel Brown has meant to your finding your own voice? Because that cat, to me, I mean, I've interviewed Matt Kelly, the harp player, used to play with Kingfish, okay? And he's a crazy dude, but I mean, that dude was taking Quaaludes. He got up on the bandstand in San Jose, and Mel Brown, he was playing with Mel Brown. The next day, he was in the recording studio with Mel Brown. Mel Brown took him to Watts, rescued him, helped him out, and he was considered the Black Jerry Garcia. And I don't think anybody really knows about Mel Brown, but I think you love Mel Brown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I mean, he's one of those guitar players like Gabor Szabo to me. And, like there's parts of Mel Brown that find their way into the Circles aesthetic.
I hear it. I hear it.
Yeah, listening to those Mel Brown records, Suck My Thumb, Chicken Fat, those things. That's just hearing. And like Mel Brown he's really kind of a blues player, with a lot of speed. He wasn't really, he like had that like cool way of playing fast, and he had his own voice on the guitar. So he wasn't like a genius, in the way that like, I don't know, Kenny Burrell is, you know what I mean? He's not that kind of guy. He's kind of scrappy and bluesy.
Sure.
But he plays in a really like idiosyncratic way that when you hear it, you kind of know it's him. And that I can relate to because I feel similar, like I'm a little bit scrappy. I don't really have, I don't have like the virtuoso qualities that I admire so much in others, but I do have some personality. I got a little moxie and I find my own way of playing simple things to give it like a bit of my own kind of, flair. And some people can tell that it's me. And really, that stuff those are compensatory, methods, really. Like a lot of times, if you don't have a whole lot of ability, you kind of make up for it with like personality, and you make up for it in other ways. And
Sure.
I do that all the time. That's what my style is. It's all compensating for what I can't do. I feel like Mel Brown, I get that feeling from him when I hear those records, and but he was he had a wild, kind of reckless, like almost going off the rails kind of quality to his playing. There's great humor in his playing too. It's kind of that kind of not chicken picking, but that kind of scratchy thing he had. It just makes me laugh sometimes. There's a joy and a humor and kind of a whimsy in it that I love so much. So yeah, I'm inspired by him a lot. Trying to get more humor into the playing is always something I'm trying to get out of the Mel Brown. records, and he's very underappreciated. I think he was from L.A., right?
Yeah, I mean, he was. I mean, the idiosyncratic part and going off the rails. I mean, I that's Casal to me in some form. It's like this. This is about authenticity, and I just before we let you go, and I appreciate you taking the time, my brother. I really do. I just.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. No. Can you talk a little bit about where, I brought up Ornette Coleman, and that's fine. You haven't studied that whole melodic concept. What are you getting off on today? What is it? Because what I love about you guys, like with Leone, and I haven't talked to Chris yet, but you guys are always taking the challenge. You're putting yourself out there. Be yourself. Be who you are. All the great leaders let the people around them express themselves. But I want to know from you an area it could be humor, it could be voicing, it could be time feel, it could be genre. What are you still pushing that you are not satisfied about with the Casal pedigree?
Oof. Oh man!
You can just choose one thing. Just choose one. Just choose one.
Well, sure. I mean, I'll tell you, no problem. I mean, the most recent thing in my mind, it's guitar playing. I don't have I don't have much agility. I don't have much speed. Not that you need to be like a fast guitar player, but a little bit of agility really helps in certain situations. It helps you get you out of a jam, and it's good musical action. when you can do it well. That, and I just, some of my harmonic knowledge is just not that deep. I'm just too much of a rock player, and I just have to, my ears, I need to get them deeper. I played a show the other night at Brooklyn Bowl. It was the show where they auctioned off Wolf.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So the guitar that sold for $1.6 million.
Unbelievable.
So it was a show with Joe. Yeah, it was wild to watch that happen. But like the Joe Russo put the band together for that night of music, and like there was Nels Klein was there, playing Schofield, and it was insane, and I didn't play with either of those two guys, thankfully, but just being around them and being a part of the same show it's pretty daunting for a guy like me. But then I was in a couple of the groups with Scott Metzger, and Tom Hamilton. Both of those guys are great guitar players. But Metzger, we did a version of Eyes of the World, and he just took this solo that just blew my mind in its depth and like his phrasing and his ability and like how exciting, and I don't know, it sounded like it sounded like Ornette. It sounded like a sax solo, the way he played it.
Sure.
And I've played that song many times. I always struggle with those changes, as simple as they are. I just have a hard time playing through them. And I heard Scott play so beautifully through them. And, I talked to him afterwards, and I like watched his solo like 10 times on YouTube, and I've tried to learn it, and which I've told him about. I'm like, man, how did you do that one thing? And he's like, I don't know, I just play. So there you go. There's me. I'm sitting on YouTube watching Scott Metzger solos, trying to improve myself in any way. But it's everything, lyrics, songwriting, singing, every part of the game is every part of music, everything that we're after. There's no complacency ever. There isn't any part of my creative life that I feel satisfied with at all. I've done some good work and some work that I'm really proud of, and that I would give to anyone and put up against, most things and say, hey, that's great. So it's not like I, think it's all crap. I don't. I've done a lot of good work. But as far as being satisfied with my level of ability and what I'm doing, no, not even close. As a matter of fact, the farther I go into this, the more there is to learn, and the chase is on now, really. Because once you really know what's out there, and it's like studying space. it's just this thing of like, whoa, wait, okay, we thought that was the
Right.
end. Uh-oh, you know what I mean? Our camera,
No, I mean,
our
it just keeps
lenses-
unfolding. There's a deep well. There's a deep well of information.
It's endless. It's an endless well. Yeah. So like, oh man, our telescope. Someone just made one. It can see way further. So where we thought it ended before, it absolutely doesn't. As a matter of fact, we have no idea, and the whole thing is way bigger than we ever thought. So forget about thinking you know everything, because you don't. And that's music. That's why I love being in this so much, because of its infinite nature. So yes, I'm always chasing how to play better guitar, how to do any of this better, and that's what makes it great, you know.
Well, Neal Casal, I know you're playing in the stealth progressive regions of Colorado, but I at some point I do hope to see you down here in Tucson. It's 110 degrees, but we gotta catch a hang and get down to business. I love your mindset, and I know that just getting the memo and being a human being is incredibly important. I mean, I've passed the credibility threshold with a lot of cats, but to connect with my peers or people that are going to be carrying the torch is incredibly important. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time and just keep burning out there, man.
Well, thank you. I would talk to you anytime, and where else? I mean, I can tell you this for sure. There is no other interview that I could do where the interviewer would ask me about Mel Brown. I can tell you that. I mean, where else could you talk about Mel Brown to people? So so all of the subjects we cover are far-reaching and beautiful. But I mean, if we only talked about Mel Brown, man, it would just be worth it for that.
Well, I think most importantly, I mean, I think that's the one thing about my kids. I can leave you with that, is that they basically taught me that it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be having fun, and that's the point. And that's what Narda Michael Walden told me in our interview. My show re-inspires him, re-inspires the tired heart, re-inspires the soul, and ultimately it's about having fun, and that's all I care about. And I think sometimes, like you said, you get on stage, you get too serious, say I got to back off, let's pick this up later, and that's what my show is too, man. So I'm glad you rode the waves today, and we'll cook again, man. And throw on some Mel Brown tonight, man. He's a humorous cat.
So wait a minute. Yeah, I will, for sure. Is
Yeah.
it Ornette Coleman's harmonic theory, right?
Yeah, I just assumed that after talk, I mean, basically the harmonic.
No, I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Okay,
that is,
you're
you
teaching me,
just make sure that you credit when you start to really stretch, because that bass player has the capabilities. But I know that Lesh and Garcia, they incorporated that concept into rock, and that's where Circles is going. So check that out, and we'll talk about it, and we'll get back on it later.
All right, well, there you go. Now I have my internet work cut out for me tonight. I'm going to learn about the harmonic theory that I should have learned about years ago.
No, I just, you know what it is?
No.
I'm just so psyched because it's going to stretch. It's going to keep, your ears are going to be so big, they're going to be bigger than your head pretty soon. I love it.
Yeah, I hope so. All right.
Much
Well,
love,
thank you
Casal.
very much for
Yeah,
having
have a good few days in Colorado, and thanks for supporting me on New Media. We'll be in touch. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Later on. Legendary individual, Neal Casal, and thanks to everybody, including my children who are at home. I'm going to go back to them now, and we'll finish out with Circles on the Sun. We'll be back tomorrow with Bobby Cochran later on. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Peace.